with our people and get to hear their thoughts and their views. We thank the religious leaders, the traditional leaders, as we visited their various palaces, as we visited the various places of worship. We'd like to thank the business leaders and organizations as we also interacted with them and exchanged views and thoughts with them, as well as the professional sector, the sports sector, and many others, and of course, the media as well. We thank you not only for opening the doors, but your thoughts to us, and for forthrightly putting your suggestions and your views forward. In the Sekhukhune region, I was privileged to hear the thoughts of some young people, some of whom were suggesting to the National Executive Committee what should go into the January 8th statement. And others were a lot more ambitious and forward-looking, as they said, what should go into the State of the Nation address. And others even went further to say what should go into the budget that will be presented by Comrade Godongwana. So it's been a week and a few days of real extensive discussions, consultations. It proves the correctness of the decision that was taken by the National Executive Committee that prior to January 8th, whichever province has been allocated the honor of organizing the birthday of our movement, we should spend time engaging with our people. And in many ways, this process that we went through was the continuation of the pilgrimage that we started in 2018, when we went to a number of places, including the graves and the homes of the founding leaders of the movement. It was wonderful to go to various royal houses here in this province, as well as homes of leaders who have departed, like Comrade John Gadimeng. And when we were told that right in 1912, a number of our traditional leaders were present in Mangaung when the African National Congress formed, it was truly humbling to continue seeing the continued commitment of families, regions, to the African National Congress spanning over 110 years. For the families about Babang, dintse di tshwarane le wona mokgatlo o tloga ka 1912 go be go fitlhe mamotla. Re tshwanetse re ipotse gore rena ba batlang go kgathala re tla ba re kgathatswa ke eng na. Ba bang ba dutse ba tshwere mokgatlo o for more than 100 years. It was very humbling to see that. One of the outstanding events that happened also during this process was the Peter Mokaba Memorial Lecture organized by the ANC Youth League. Yesterday, I saw visions of the re-emergence of the ANC Youth League. There are clear signs that the Youth League is rising. I saw the enthusiasm of young people who had come in their large numbers to a point where we could not accommodate them in the hall that the leadership of the Youth League had organized, and it had to be outside, and they were there in their large numbers. The event, which became oversubscribed, was the Lillian Matabanengoi Memorial Lecture, which had to be postponed. The oversubscription in terms of attendance of that lecture is a clear sign itself that the Women's League in this province is definitely alive without any doubt. And we'd like to thank the leadership of the ANC Women's League that once the numbers had overrun the compliance numbers, they were decisive enough to say that the event should be postponed. So I will be back to address that memorial lecture because it is important that we should do so. Yes, the national leadership of both the party and COSATU has been on the ground. They've been crisscrossing the length and the breadth of this province, interacting not only with their members, but with members and structures of our movement. We'd like to thank them for having spent a great deal of time through the various structures of their leadership. So we've had a really excellent build-up to this 110th birthday of the African National Congress. Great build-up, which has culminated in the National Executive Committee spending hours and hours going through many drafts of the statement of the ANC on the birthday of the African National Congress, a précis of which I am now going to put forward. The ANC NEC has had to go up to 15 drafts just preparing this statement, because in doing so it has dealt with the current situation. It is exactly 50 years since Isitholandwe Siaparangwe, President Oliver Reginald Tambo delivered a January NEC statement commemorating the 60th anniversary of the founding of the ANC. This anniversary takes place just a few days after a devastating fire swept through our parliament in Cape Town. The entire country has been shocked, outraged, and saddened by the destruction, because the institution of parliament is a repository of our democracy and a symbol, been a site of transformation. It's also been a site of empowering lawmaking and also a site of redress where we have worked together to overcome the legacy of our apartheid past. Although the buildings of Parliament have been extensively damaged, Parliament as an institution remains intact and will continue to express and give effect to the will of the people of South Africa. Parlamente isale hona ayashwa. Kabani ki parlamente pilang mo dipilong tsa batho. On this occasion of the 110th anniversary of the formation of the ANC, we need to engage in a frank assessment of how far we have come during the past year in meeting the core mandate defined by the 54th National Conference. There are many developments that characterize this environment and which inform our program for the year ahead. These include COVID-19 pandemic, which is a global health crisis unlike any the world have ever seen in more than a century. In our own country, more than 92,000 lives have been lost to COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. This has been a profoundly traumatic period in our national life, but not only in our national life, but in the lives of various families in our country, challenging us to give reassurance, to give leadership, inspiration, and to also give hope for the future to our people. Our economy has been severely damaged. Millions are without work, and today, more than ever before, rely on social support for survival. The rate of economic recovery, while better than anticipated, has not been sufficient, and the resources that are needed to address the challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality have largely been inadequate. At the same time, our experience of the pandemic has highlighted the sense of social solidarity, more critically, the need for all South Africans to join hands in a social compact to revive the economy and improve the quality of life of especially the poor in our country. The pandemic struck as we were launching concerted efforts to reposition our economy and attract much-needed investment as we've been rebuilding the democratic state after years of state capture. Not only was state capture a systematic attempt at siphoning off public resources and funds, it also destroyed the capability of the state and led to the departure of capable people from public institutions as they resisted state capture. Some were fired, some were forced to resign, and some just gave up. Some were suspended for long periods, and they left. And those were the critical skills that our country was robbed of. People who knew the work, who knew the right things to do. But because state capture targeted them, because those who were perpetrating it knew that if they remove those people, it will be a lot easier to achieve their own ends. It also undermined our democratic state and threatened our program of social and economic transformation. As expected, the renewal that we have embarked on is being assailed at various levels by acts of institutional and social disruption. Let us, from the outset, make it clear that these desperate efforts that some are making will fail in the face of a united people resolved to protect South Africa's democratic gain. Bakasike ba retula, bakasike ba tula batho ba South Africa. We must be forthright in recognizing and deal decisively with the reality that ANC structures are in a poor state themselves. Many of them are focused on internal organizational conflicts, factionalism, and furthering the self-interest of individual leaders, which results in the lack of service delivery to our people and the lack of addressing the aspirations of communities that they are meant to serve. These weaknesses were reflected in the results of the local government elections in November 2021. While the ANC received a clear mandate to govern in the overwhelming majority of municipalities in our country, our overall share of the national vote fell below 50% for the first time since the advent of democracy. Many citizens demonstrated their dissatisfaction with our movement and its performance by staying away from the polls. The movement must therefore undergo a fundamental and lasting process of renewal and rebuilding if it is to remain an effective and trusted agent of change. We must intensify our work to restore the relevance, the capability, the credibility of the ANC so that it continues to be a powerful force for transformation, a powerful force that will continue to be trusted by our people. As we do so, comrades, we must be clear that this whole process that the NEC and indeed our conference in Nasrec decided on will be a painful and protracted process. No resistance, even from our ranks, can force us to abandon the cause of truly being the ANC of the people. Barata kapa abarati re tlo ntlafatsa ANC re etse yona ANC ela e batlwang ke setšhaba. We are on that path, much as in some quarters it will meet resistance, but it is a path and a journey that we've got to embark upon without any fail, without any retreat. In furtherance of our fundamental objective to create a better life for all, this January 8th statement sets out priorities for all ANC members and cadres that must underpin our work during 2022. Firstly, we must build a social compact to decisively address the big challenge of unemployment and poverty in our country. Working with all social partners, we must accelerate economic recovery and reconstruction and ensure that social services are provided to all citizens. Secondly, we must defend our democratic gains against attempts to undermine our constitutional order and destabilize our democracy. Thirdly, we must accelerate the fundamental renewal and rebuilding of the African National Congress so that it is more effective and trusted as an agent of change. Fourthly, we must build a capable developmental state with an effective ethical public service that drives the implementation of our country's transformative agenda. And fifthly, we must continue to work for a better Africa and a better world. On the first priority, comrade, the ANC urges government to conclude a social compact with all social partners on the measures to place our nation on a higher and a more inclusive growth path. The ANC takes this view that in the end, the economic recovery process has to be embarked upon by all social partners. It is not only the task of the ANC, nor the task of labor or the task of government. It is the task of all of us to build this social compact. Such a social compact must set out the obligations and commitments of all social partners, government, business, labor, and community, to decisively address our common national challenges of poverty and unemployment. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated our already precarious economic situation. In a short space of time, around 1.5 million people lost their jobs, since the start of the pandemic, and the unemployment rate we now have is at its highest ever. Government invested heavily in providing additional and much needed social and economic relief measures in the face of this unprecedented public health crisis. Government poured billions into addressing the challenges that our country and our people were facing. The Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which was launched in October 2020, draws extensively from the movement's position as discussed and as engaged on as the Alliance and a number of other formations, and finally developed with our social partners at the network level. Recognizing that it will take time for businesses to recover from the pandemic and begin to create jobs again, government implemented an employment stimulus program. In its first phase, this employment stimulus created more than 550,000 employment and livelihood support opportunities for many of our people. We will continue to implement public employment programs to support unemployed working-age adults and will work in consultation with organized labor and other social partners to develop these programs. The Social Relief of Distress Grant, eba to baring habambona by the President, 350 rand, has provided vital support for the unemployed during the pandemic, reaching more than 10 million people and lifting 5 million of our people above the food poverty line. This has been a great initiative by government, which has given a lot of support to our people. Many of us would have thought, Hori, Bela Hobea 350 Ranta Mota Fuleng, Yale Lapa Lele Lapa, into Enyan, Ikumeku Ribanu Votala, by Amukela Yomalile, Nahambi, Ibona Irinzongo, but it has assisted a clear need for some form of income support for unemployed in our country and poor South Africans based on clear principles of affordability and sustainability. This, in many ways, is what is causing Comrade Ino Godongwane to lose more and more of his hair on his head, because as he thinks about the many challenges that face him as our Minister of Finance, including this very issue that is standing as a huge challenge, which we have to find some resources for. Central to the formation of the ANC 110 years ago was the need, comrades, to respond in a united manner to widespread colonial land dispossession. Redressing this historical injustice and returning land to the people is a critical component of the ANC's fight for social justice and the elimination of the vast inequalities created by apartheid. Such the land reform